Hello and welcome to Raj Sabha TV. You're watching The Big Picture with your host Rajat Kane. In this edition of the show, we'll talk about the spike in air pollution. Now, Delhi is once again grappling with the crisis of air pollution. The spike in pollution has once again dipped the capital's air quality. Though it showed marginal improvement on Wednesday morning, the air quality index measuring 383, the problem doesn't quite seem to get resolved with no long-term solution seemingly in sight. And it's not just Delhi alone. The major cities too are facing similar issues, be it Mumbai, Kolkata, Lucknow. The air quality remains between very poor to even severe. Now, early this week, following reports of pollution levels, the Supreme Court-appointed Environment Pollution Control Authority had issued a 3-day ban on industries and construction work in Delhi and the National Capital Region till December 26th, which is today. Delhi government too is contemplating to bring back the odd-even car rationing formula if the need arises. But do we really have a solution in sight? Now, in this edition of Big Picture, we'll debate this issue with our guest, Mr. Chetan Chauhan, Deputy National Affairs Editor, The Hindustan Times, Professor C.K. Varshney, renowned environmentalist, and Mr. Paratosh C. Tyagi, former Chairman, Central Pollution Control Board. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us in the show. I would first like to start with you, sir. Mr. Chauhan, like you had written a detailed report about the pollution, and not just Delhi-centric, but the North Indian-centric. Is it really a seasonal phenomenon, or are we looking at a larger crisis?
No, air pollution, if you see, is a year-round problem, but yes, it is seasonal to some extent because from October, when the autumn sets in, the cooler temperature gets slightly cooler, the wind dispersal becomes an issue, then it spikes. But air pollution is a yearly problem. In the summer months, it may be poor, may not be in the severe category, but it is a yearly problem. And second is, I think that air pollution abatement, an action plan on air pollution is a year-round program. It cannot be that in the winter months, when suddenly it kicks in, you start coming up with measures, unless it happens around the year, because the bad air quality in a city tells you that the governance is bad. The governance is not up to the mark. You see, the dust, the PM pollution when you talk about is primarily about dust. Dust originates from vehicle emissions and from circulation of dust on the roads. So our road management, congestion on the cities are the issues which you cannot deal only in the winter months. Odd and even can come in 5 days, 10 days. If it's a perennial problem for 3 months, odd and even cannot be for 3 months. So you have to take short-term measures which can be odd and even, then you have long-term measures, which is how to decongest a city, how to ensure that the air pollution management programs are there at macro level as well as at micro level. So it is a year-long problem, and it spikes during the winter months. And if you see this time, it is purely meteorological conditions.
Right.
When it was Diwali, then everybody blamed stubble burning. Oh, it's happening because of stubble burning. I said then, boss, it is not because of stubble burning only. Biomass influence is not more than 10%. It is because of the air pollution generated within the city, within NCR, which is the problem. You have to deal with the problem in-house. You cannot always blame outsiders for your own problem. And the problem is, like climate change has climate deniers. We in Delhi, even in government, we have air pollution deniers who don't want to admit that it's our problem and we have to solve it.
Right. Professor Varshney, I would like to come to you. Do you think that authorities require a little more push? Some more needs to be required to be done?
Actually, not some, but quite many things have to be done, because it is a very serious problem, and by the year it is increasing both in dimension and geographical area. And I agree that this is a year-round problem, but the fact of the matter is these spikes are due to various different reasons in different seasons. So actually, when you see a plant which in different seasons becomes either flowering, then fruiting, and then senescence, similarly the air pollution is also like that. During summer months and after rains particularly, the air quality is reasonably good relatively as compared to the other months. Not that it is entirely satisfactory all the time. So the important point is at some time it is the stubble burning coupled with patakhas during Diwalis which really add to the problem. And as the time passes and year rolls round, you will find that some other factors become dominating. For example, the weather or the climate or that point of time the weather conditions are such. And also because of the winter, you will find that a large number of fire and the duration of the fire increases because many people burn waste and some wood chips and some firewood to really tide over the cool winter nights. So as the temperature drops, you will find that there are two things which are happening, and they have got some synergist effect which really heighten the problem of air pollution. Number one, that the dispersal is very poor and the air is full of moisture. So as a result, the air becomes very heavy, plus there is an inversion which really doesn't allow the pollutants to disperse. And thirdly, the amount of fire and the quantity of fire and the number of people which are using fire during the night also increases substantially. Okay. It is not only the city limits, but even the urban area or the rural areas around the city which are also contributing. And more importantly, there are factories also which surreptitiously release pollutant and work during the night. And our patrolling system rather weak, and therefore it is possible for them to escape the attention and detection. And for that, it is important that in a city like Delhi, where the air pollution problem is not so simple, it is highly complex, and it changes its complexion also round the year. During the summer, again, we find that there were situations where air pollution index has become very, very severe, and that is because of the dust that was brought to the city because of the dry air or the loo that we call commonly was flowing from the desert areas. So I think a very complex solution has to be evolved. These kinds of measures which presently one is talking odd and even, or sometimes stop construction or stop the factory performance or dust and sprinkle water, these are temporary measures, which is something like this: when you go to an emergency ward, then some immediate treatment is provided, but that is not the solution. So solution has to be that for every sector, but particularly in the road sector, and the dust that is all around the city and on either side of the road is another major contributor. It's around 30% is contributed by this. And therefore, it is important that sector and subsector has to be addressed separately, and each will require a different solution. And for that is not that is lacking. And as a consequence, we find that we are always trapped in this situation. For last 2 decades, Delhi is suffering from air pollution, which is increasing in intensity, in its duration, and its frequency.
Mr. Tyagi, I would like to come to you. You've been chairman of the Central Pollution Control Board. How far the topography of the city has added to the problems? And as Sir just mentioned that there seems to, Professor Varshney just mentioned that there seems to be the dust issue. So how far topography plus dust issue and construction activities have contributed to pollution level, air pollution level?
Besides topography, meteorology is also very important.
Right.
And these two together, along with the activities that are going on, which includes construction and traffic, I think these are the major factors. Mr. Chauhan and Dr. Varshney have already said what I could say.
You can also add up, please. Yeah.
But if there is a question on which I have a new thought, I will come to it. The only thing I want to say is that there are many solutions with their respective effects. And therefore, a good package has to be selected.
Right.
I remember that in September, there was a high-level meeting in Noida, attended by very high-level authorities, and they zeroed on 5 goals or 5 fronts. One of them was that there should be no traffic jam. The potholes on the roads shall be eliminated. The brick kilns will be modernized. Like that, there were 1 or 2 more. And after stating them, it looked as if they think the other activities are not needed. If I am asked about it, then I would say that emphasis on non-motorized traffic is much more important than any one of them. And today, neither the pedestrian nor the cyclist has an opportunity to go any distance on the road. If attention is given on that, lot of traffic will be reduced. And as both of them have said, if the dust that is generated is removed by, I say, vacuum cleaning, then at least 1/3 of the problem will be reduced. Some precautions at the construction site are necessary, like sprinkling of water, and for that some enforcement is needed. And unfortunately, in our setup, we have quite a number of authorities who can give directions, starting from DPCC, CPCB, Ministry, NGT, and all that. But the machinery to see that the enforcement is done and to check whether there is any violation, that machinery is very poor. And each one of them has a different machinery to rely on. And there is no coordination. If there was coordination, at least those agencies could have acted together in order to have more effect than they are having today.
You just mentioned about the transport problem, the boat problem. Around the world, there is emphasis on increasing public transportation. Do you see that as in major cities, we're lacking that phenomenon? We have more and more private transport, and then authority seems to be bounding the private transportation. Like odd even rule is one of the small example of that. There are divided opinions about odd and even, that whether it has worked or not worked. But if we talk about the transportation, urban transportation, where you think we have been found lacking?
Very good question. Actually, your question reminds me a big letter to the editor in 1980s, early 1980s, when Maruti had still not arrived on the road, but it was very much in the news. And the letter had the title, "Do we need Maruti or double decker?" And he emphasized that very point, that if we have good transit systems, we will not have so many vehicles on the road. And I think it was a very major thing. And thereafter, I think not only Maruti was encouraged, every other encouragement, whether financial or technical, or even remodeling of the roads and crossings, everything was directed towards the automobile, which has been probably the result, which has resulted in all these problems of pollution, traffic jams and everything.
Mr. Chauhan, I mean, you think that there is a lack of urban transportation mechanism in that way? Because, I mean, we have several fleet of DTC buses, which is still to be...
Fleet of DTC buses, if you see in Delhi, it's gone down. The number has gone down because a large number of buses were phased out. The decision of the buses which was supposed to happen, at the pace it was supposed to happen, has not happened. But you know, when you have a metro system in a city, which is over about 400 kilometers now almost, then you have to have a last mile connectivity public transport system.
Right.
Delhi government or maybe the municipal corporation, whichever the body is has to have a system. You have to move away from long distance buses to shorter distance bus transport system with the last mile connectivity is there. You have to link the buses to the metro. If you see, the metro has come, it has expanded, the DTC bus routes are all almost the same, nothing much has changed. So any planning for air pollution combatement, I think, has not happened. Public transport, apart from that, if you see the last mile connectivity, the buses, the parking areas have also increased in the area, and the parking fees is not abnormally high in Delhi, in high congested places. That is sort of a disincentive for people to bring their cars. So I think on public transport, the governments have lacked, and I think there has to be special emphasis on electric vehicles, on more number of electric vehicles in the public transport, also in the personal transport. The FAME scheme of the government of India has not been able to deliver on what it intended, because if you give a lot of incentive to the maybe manufacturer, the customer may not be willing to buy. Second is the infrastructure. If you have to have an electric vehicle, you have to set up an infrastructure in a city where people can charge their vehicles. We have a zero electric vehicle infrastructure, and we are talking about electric vehicles. So the push forward for us on air pollution combatement is there only on papers. I don't see much work on ground. You know, you see in the 90s era when the red line buses used to be there, NOx and SO2 used to be there, that has come down, it has been replaced by PM2, PM10, and it's primarily, as Mr. Tyagi said, that our focus on public personal transport, vehicles, flyovers has been so much that this is the problem of too much of urbanization that we are facing. Until we decongest a city, until we say that no more registration of vehicles in Delhi NCR, unless especially for the families which have 2 vehicles or 3 vehicles,
Right.
no more registration, unless restrictions are imposed, you will not see any sort of improvement in air pollution this year, next year, in coming years. Harsh measures are needed.
Professor Vashni, I mean, you think harsh measures that just tossed up are implementable, given like we love owning cars?
No, you see, I think we have to be a little more balanced in our approach, because if we see that which are the sources which contribute and how much they contribute, then we will find that the total contribution by the automobile sector is anywhere 25 to 35%. And out of which the contribution made by cars is still much smaller. And as a result, any one measure, I can assure you, is not going to improve the situation in which we are. Because already I was looking at the air quality data this morning, and the data that I saw was about 1 AM 26th of December. And I find that out of the 35 monitoring stations that Delhi has, 19 of them has air quality index which has crossed 400, severe, very severe. So the question is that it is not because entirely of one vehicle or transportation sector. We have to work on different aspects. And I give you that one important thing is that we have taken air pollution as one sector, which perhaps is a wrong approach. Every sector has to contribute to air pollution control. For example, the transportation, for example, the energy sector, for example, the construction sector, for example, the question of social mobility and social acceptability, transport engineering. So I think that from each different sectors, one has to get sensitization for the people who are planners and the bureaucrats to understand the problem, because each sector is contributing, and in different seasons, different sectors become important source of air pollution. So this is an important issue. Taking air pollution as one aspect or one problem is not going to solve. Either it will be too much emphasis on Parali, or it will be too much emphasis on road transport. Now, we were talking of public transport. I tell you that today in Delhi there are 3,000 buses, and it was promised by the people concerned that many more buses will come on the road, which
Right.
is not there. And we are still talking that we are planning to bring electrical buses. Now, for past 2 decades, Delhi is suffering, and we have earned the distinction of being one of the most polluted cities in the world. But even then, we are only saying that we are planning. So the question is that everybody has to become little more active in this and has to take care of the public health. It is now estimated that anywhere 1.7 year to 10 years of life is being reduced because of this severe air pollution. So if a city which is considered to be the economic, I should say, powerhouse, where the people health is suffering, what kind of powerhouse are we talking, and what kind of urbanization and future urbanization are we planning? So I think this is one of the first thing that we have to plan, that the people who live in cities, particularly in urban cities or in the other metropolitan cities, are assured of good quality of air. Air is one of the important requirement for survival. And if that is not available, I think our functional capacity as well our innovative thinking and everything gets very seriously affected, particularly the children of the health and the children of women, and more importantly, the pregnant women and the elderly people are really at a very serious problem. It is estimated that about 1,000 people per year or 10,000 people per year die because of the air pollution. Some other estimates give another figure. So I think our research also on this aspect has to increase, and there has to be more allocation of fund to find out the causes of the pollution and how dynamically they are changing their complexion as well as their importance in the totality of the air pollution conundrum. So I think these are some of the aspects which we are lacking. There are 4 or 5 estimates which give different source apportionment, and one is not sure that where. If we have to plan a policy, we must have a very dependable data, and that is not available. Most of these estimates have been done by some foreign agencies, and some of our own agencies have a variance in their estimates. So I think even on this aspect, a much more serious effort has to be made rather than to rely on one report or the other report, which we are going to really. Because at sometimes some reports have said that Parali and the burning of the stubble is the most important thing, which is perhaps not, because it's a very small seasonal. From 30th of September to 30th of October is a problem of Parali, not afterwards, but we are much after that Parali season. So as the season advances, the causes of pollution becomes up or down, and that dynamicity has to be taken into account in any permanent solution that we have to find. And unless we do that, and unless every sector is really sensitized to take care of the activities which result into air pollution problem cannot be solved. Right. So I think a much more policy drive has to be made so that different sectors are sensitized and they are made responsible for the pollution or air pollution arising out of the activity of those different sectors. I think that part is very much lacking.
Doctor, two points I want to make. One is that if you see the number of buses, it is 1.5 bus for per lakh population. It may be the lowest proportion of buses for a big metropolitan city in the world. Even any city in the world will have more number of buses for per lakh population. It has gone down. Earlier, there were 10,000 buses, the number has gone down. Second,
we used to have 5,000 buses, now we have 3,000.
Yeah, the number has gone down and the population has increased. If you see the population pressure in Delhi, it has increased. A large number of people from NCR outside also come, which use personal vehicles. If they have a public transport system for them, then a lot of pressure in Delhi can be reduced. Second, he was speaking about the industry and the construction sector. But my point is, if I go by my own experience, CPCB study on source appropriation, the sources, it is very clear to me that 45 to 50% contribution to Delhi's air pollution is vehicles. Because one thing which has increased in the years is vehicles. The industries have not dramatically increased. The construction may be on the higher side, but it's not on the higher side. If you see, the Delhi metro construction was there on the higher side last year, but this year the metro construction is on the lower side. So one big problem is the transport sector, and we cannot have a solution without dealing with the transport sector firmly.
Mr. Tyagi, I would like to ask you, I mean, I'm not saying that have we missed the bus, but do you see that authorities or stakeholders which were required to actually contribute to solution of this problem in the urban expansion as we are seeing today has somehow not calculated threadbare? I mean, what more stakeholders need to do here?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, we have wider roads now and narrower green belts along the roads. Avenues have been cut down at many places just to widen the roads and also take away whatever was available for the pedestrians. Now, this has to be rectified. This has to be reversed. And it will require a good deal of thinking, planning, experimenting, and it will be possible to get some success in it. I am just saying that in the matter of traffic, one-way traffic and roundabouts change to lights and lights change to roundabouts, etc., have been experimented with some success. Here hardly any attention has been paid to plan that greenery should increase, that the green belt should be so located that they will absorb the dust, noise and also odor. When Dr. Varshney was saying that vehicles cause only 20 to 25% pollution, I cannot challenge the figure because I don't have better figures. But I think he was referring to the emissions from the automobiles. Whereas automobiles cause many other kind of problems such as noise, such as tire dust and such as taking away, as I said, the facility that was available to the non-motorized traffic. Another thing I would like to say is that there are cities in the world, and here also they talk about it, that the metro and bus will have a single ticket, and the as rightly said, the last mile facility, whether it is with the help of a bicycle or with the help of smaller automobiles or e-rickshaws, these are the things that have to be planned at specific locations, and even the traffic situation can be improved from what it is today.
Right.
No, I can tell you one thing that
very briefly, sir.
Well, I can tell you one thing, that we have to integrate different modes of public transport so that it works as a functional network without really duplicity. You will find that there are many road or many bus routes which are parallel to the metro route, and I think all that kind of thing, if can be integrated, then even last mile connectivity, even with the little infrastructure that we have, can be vastly improved.
Right.
And one thing, because Delhi has so many authorities, there are multiplicity of authorities, so many of the authorities don't work in close coordination. So my suggestion is, because the Supreme Court has always taken action on air pollution in Delhi, there should be a Supreme Court appointed authority, EPCA is there, but some agency which have an authority to implement, enforce orders and ensure that an action plan is implemented around the year.
Right. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. So this was our big picture for today, starting with coordination between the authorities, willingness, and of course, implementation are all that is required to fight out or battle out the severity of pollution that is increasing by the day. Thank you for watching Rajya Sabha TV.